The night before my medical school interview, my sister poured bleach on my only blazer. By morning, pale stains had eaten across the shoulder and lapel, exactly where no one could miss them. When I held it up in the kitchen, my mother barely looked at me. "Stop making a scene, Linda," she said. My father nodded like I was the problem. Vanessa just stirred her cereal and smiled. So I wore it anyway. I walked into that interview with my humiliation on display. The dean looked at my bleached jacket, then at my last name, and whispered, "Wait, you're her." I had been awake since 5 that morning, lying in my childhood bedroom, staring at the same ceiling crack I used to make shapes out of when I was 8, back then. I thought if I studied hard enough, behaved well enough, and stayed useful enough, my family would eventually see me, not as the responsible one, not as the daughter who could take it, just me. By 25, I knew better. My name is Linda Bellamy, and for 3 years, I had built my entire life around one-door medical school. I studied under fluorescent library lights until my eyes burned. I volunteered at a free clinic where the waiting room always smelled like hand sanitizer, old coats, and tired hope. I retook the MCAT with money I earned working double shifts at a diner off the highway, smiling through coffee refills while memorizing biochemistry terms on my breaks. Nothing about my path had been smooth. Nothing had been handed to me. That was why the blazer mattered. It was charcoal gray, wool blend, secondhand, and the most professional thing I owned. I bought it from a consignment shop 2 towns over after trying on 6 jackets that either pulled at the shoulders or made me look like a kid borrowing her mother's work clothes. This one fit, not perfectly, but close enough to make me stand a little taller. I had it cleaned the week before the interview. I pressed it again myself. Then I hung it on the back of my closet door like armor. Vanessa saw it. Of course she did. My sister was 22, still living at home, still drifting from one half-finished plan to the next. A beauty program she quit after 2 months. A small online shop she never shipped orders for. A community college semester she blamed on bad professors. My parents never called it quitting. They called it finding herself. When I got a scholarship, Vanessa said, "Must be nice being everyone's little success story." When I got published in an undergraduate research journal, she asked if I wrote it myself. When I mentioned my interview in New Haven, she went quiet in that sharp, flat way that meant I had done something unforgivable by being happy. Carol, my mother, always said, "Don't take everything so personally." She's your sister, Grant, my father, usually just turned up the TV. So I learned to make myself smaller at home. I celebrated in private. I opened acceptance emails in the bathroom. I cried in my car when something good happened because joy felt safer with the doors locked. The night before the interview, I checked my folder 3 times. Resume, research summary, volunteer hours, directions, parking note. I set my blouse over the chair, polished my only good heels, and looked at the blazer one last time before turning off the light. For once, something in my room looked ready, and I let myself believe, just for a second, that maybe I was too. At 7:30 the next morning, I knew something was wrong before I saw it. My bedroom smelled sharp, chemical, clean in the cruelest way. For one stupid second, I thought maybe my mother had sprayed something in the hallway. Then I looked at the closet door. The blazer was still on the hanger. That was the first trick my brain played on me. It looked normal from across the room, like the world had not shifted while I was downstairs eating toast I could barely swallow. But when I stepped closer, the light from the window caught the fabric. My stomach dropped. Pale, uneven stains spread across the left shoulder, down the lapel, and across the front panel. Not one splash. Not an accident. Someone had stood there and made sure the damage would be seen from 10 feet away. Bleach. I touched the edge of the fabric with 2 fingers, like it might burn me. The color was gone. So was the illusion that distance from Vanessa had ever protected me. I carried the blazer downstairs. Every step felt too loud. Vanessa sat at the kitchen table in pajama shorts, eating cereal slowly, one bare foot tucked under her chair. My mother stood at the counter pouring coffee into her favorite chipped mug. My father was near the hallway, searching for his keys. I held up the blazer. "Did you do this?" Vanessa did not even look at it fully. Her eyes flicked up, then back to her bowl. "Do what?" My voice came out thinner than I wanted. "There's bleach all over it." She shrugged. "Maybe you spilled something." "I didn't wear it." Mom sighed before I even finished. That sigh hit harder than Vanessa's lie. "Linda," she said, rubbing her forehead, "not today." Mom: "Look at it." "I am looking at it." "No, you're not. You're trying to make me stop talking." Dad stepped in then. Not toward me, not toward the blazer, but toward the exit. "Your mother's right," he said. "Don't start something before a big day." I stared at him. "My interview is tonight. This is the only blazer I have." "Then figure it out," he said. Already tired of me. Vanessa's spoon clinked against the bowl. Tiny, casual, cruel. Mom set her coffee down. "Stop making a scene. Linda, it's just a jacket. Just a jacket. Not 3 years of work hanging by a thread. Not the one piece of armor I had. Not a deliberate message from my sister that said, 'I can still touch what matters to you.'" I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the cereal bowl against the wall. I wanted, for once, for someone in that room to look at me and say, "She hurt you, and that matters." Nobody did. So I walked upstairs. I shut my bedroom door, sat on the edge of my bed, and cried for exactly 10 minutes. I watched the clock while I did it. 10 minutes to be devastated. 10 minutes to grieve the family I kept hoping would show up. Then I stood, because if I missed that interview, Vanessa would not have ruined my blazer. She would have ruined me. I tried to save it first. That is the part people do not understand about humiliation. Before you get angry, before you get brave, you bargain with the damage. I filled the bathroom sink with cold water and dabbed the fabric with a towel, even though I knew bleach did not work that way. I held the blazer under the light, turned it inside out, checked every seam like maybe there was some hidden miracle stitched into the lining. There wasn't. The stains had settled into the wool blend like they belonged there now. I steamed it. I pressed it. I brushed the lapel with a lint roller until my hands ached. I stood in front of the mirror and tried every angle. Buttoned, unbuttoned, hair down, hair pulled back, blouse collar out, blouse collar tucked in. Nothing erased it. The left side of my jacket looked wounded. Finally. I stopped fixing it and started fixing myself. I washed my face with cold water until the redness around my eyes faded. I put on the white blouse I had ironed the night before. I stepped into my black trousers. I cleaned a scuff off my heels with the corner of a damp washcloth. Then I tied my hair low at the back of my neck, because loose hair felt too soft for the day I was about to have. When I put the blazer on, I expected to feel ashamed. Instead, I felt something sharper. Vanessa had wanted me to walk into that interview apologizing before I said a word. She wanted every glance at my jacket to shrink me. She wanted me distracted, embarrassed, off balance. Maybe she imagined me staying home, calling admissions with a shaky voice, begging to reschedule and knowing I would never get the same chance again. I looked at myself in the mirror. The stains were obvious. So was the fact that I was still standing, downstairs. The house was quiet. Mom had retreated into her usual silence, the kind she used when she wanted the problem to disappear without anyone being held responsible. Dad's car was already gone. Vanessa's cereal bowl sat in the sink with milk drying around the edges. I almost wrote a note. I almost took a picture of the blazer and sent it to some relative, some friend, anyone who might say what my parents would not. Then I put my phone away. Not today. Today was not about proving Vanessa was cruel. Today was about proving she was not powerful enough. I gathered my folder. Resume, research summary, volunteer hours, directions, parking note. My hands paused on the research paper at the top of the stack. The one about healthcare access in rural communities. That paper had taken me 8 months. I had interviewed clinic workers. I had read hospital closure reports until midnight. I had written about mothers driving 2 counties over for prenatal care, elderly men skipping appointments because gas money mattered, children waiting weeks for basic treatment. I knew why I wanted medicine. Vanessa could bleach a jacket. She could not bleach that. The drive to New Haven took 2 hours. The car seat was cold through my trousers. My coffee went untouched in the cup holder. Every time I passed a store window or a truck mirror, I caught a flash of the pale stains. At first, I flinched. By the second hour, I stopped. When I parked outside the admissions building, I sat still for one breath, then another. I touched the ruined lapel with 2 fingers. "Fine," I whispered. "Let them look." The waiting room looked like a catalog for confidence. Navy suits, polished shoes, leather folders. One girl had a pearl necklace and a blazer so crisp it looked like it had never touched a crowded laundry room. A guy near the window reviewed flashcards under his breath. Someone's father stood in the hallway whispering last-minute encouragement before security told him applicants only beyond that point. I sat between 2 strangers and kept my shoulders back. The bleach stains were impossible to miss. I felt eyes move toward them, then away. Politely, quickly, which was somehow worse. Nobody said anything. Nobody had to. For a moment, Vanessa was in that room with me, not physically, but in the way my chest tightened every time someone glanced down. I could hear her spoon against the cereal bowl. I could hear my mother's voice. "Stop making a scene. Linda." I pressed my thumb against the edge of my folder. No, not here. When the door opened, a woman called my name. Linda Bellamy. I stood before fear could negotiate with me. The interview room was quiet, warm, and lined with dark shelves full of medical journals. 3 people sat at the table, 2 faculty members I recognized from the website, and in the center, Dr. Harold Whitmore, the Dean of Admissions. He had silver hair, square glasses, and the kind of stillness that made people choose their words carefully. "Good afternoon." "Ms. Bellamy," he said. "Good afternoon. Thank you for having me." I shook 3 hands. I sat. I placed my folder on my lap because the table suddenly felt too far away. Dr. Whitmore opened my file. Then his eyes moved to my blazer. There it was, the glance. Not cruel, not mocking, but real. He saw it. Of course he saw it. His eyes paused on the pale damage across my lapel, then lifted to my face. I did not look down. I did not explain. I did not smile like I was sorry for existing in a ruined jacket. Then he looked back at my file, at my last name, Bellamy. Something shifted in his expression. He leaned closer to the page, turned it once, then reached for a second document clipped behind my application. His brows pulled together, not in confusion, but recognition. "Wait," he said softly. "You're her." The room changed shape around me. I blinked. "Sir," he tapped the document. "Linda Renee Bellamy, your paper on healthcare access in rural communities. You won the Undergraduate Research Award last year." One of the other interviewers looked up. Dr. Whitmore smiled. And this time it was not interview polite. It was human. "I remember this paper," he said. "I was on the review committee. You wrote about physician shortages like someone who had seen what distance does to sick people." My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "I have seen it." And then the interview stopped being a performance. He asked about the clinic. I told him about the waiting room chairs with cracked vinyl, the children falling asleep against their mothers, the old man who once brought a pill bottle in a sandwich bag because he could not remember which doctor had prescribed what. He asked why medicine, not policy. I told him policy mattered, but I wanted to be the person in the room when someone scared needed a steady voice. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Nobody mentioned the blazer until near the end. Dr. Whitmore glanced at it once more and said, gently, "Today could not have been easy." I looked at the bleach stains, then back at him. "No," I said. But easy was never the reason I came. His pen stopped moving, and for the first time that day, I knew Vanessa had failed. 6 weeks later, the letter came on a Thursday afternoon. Not an email, not a portal update. A thick envelope in the mailbox with my name printed cleanly across the front. Linda Bellamy, for a second. I just stood there on the porch holding it, listening to a dog bark somewhere down the street and my own pulse beating in my ears. Inside the kitchen, Vanessa was at the table scrolling on her phone. Mom was folding dish towels. Dad was reading the local paper like he had been born behind it. I opened the envelope standing up. The first word I saw was congratulations, then full merit scholarship, then Yale School of Medicine. My knees almost gave out. I read it once, then again, then a third time, because some part of me still expected the universe to take it back. It didn't. I placed the letter on the kitchen table. Mom picked it up first. Her face softened into something that looked like pride, but underneath it was panic. The kind people feel when they realize they were standing on the wrong side of a story that ended well without them. "Oh, Linda," she said. "I always knew you would. Please don't." I did not raise my voice. That made it stronger. Mom stopped with her mouth half open. Dad read the letter next. He cleared his throat, stood awkwardly, and held out his hand. I shook it. Not because it healed anything, it didn't, but because I no longer needed him to become the father he had refused to be. Vanessa never looked at the letter. She kept scrolling, but her thumb had stopped moving. That was enough. She had poured bleach on the only blazer I owned because she wanted me to walk into that interview already defeated. Instead, the stain became the first thing the dean noticed before he remembered my name. A month later, I moved into a small apartment in New Haven, close enough to campus that I could hear traffic outside my window before sunrise. My desk filled with anatomy notes, coffee cups, and highlighters. My closet stayed mostly empty, except for the blazer. I hung it on the inside door, where I would see it before hard exams and long clinic days. I never wore it again. I didn't have to. It had already carried me into the room that changed my life. Some people will try to ruin what you wear because they cannot touch what you are. Vanessa thought bleach could make me smaller. My parents thought silence would keep the peace. But peace built on swallowing pain is not peace. It is a room where everyone else gets comfortable while you disappear. I kept the blazer because it reminds me of the truth. The world may see the stain first, but the right people will look closer. If someone has ever tried to sabotage your future, I hope you remember this. You do not need perfect armor to walk into the room you earned. You just need the courage not to turn around. Share your story in the comments if this hit home, and subscribe for more stories about people who refused to stay broken. Sometimes the thing they ruin becomes the proof that you survived.